Once upon a time, deep within the heart of an old and dense forest, nestled between the moss-covered trees and whispering leaves, there lived a peculiar snake. Unlike his brethren, the snake was born without teeth and eyes. This made him different, and not in a good way. Other snakes, with their sharp fangs and piercing gaze, would mock him, calling him names like Blind Fangless. You can probably guess how that made him feel. But even so, he wasn't bitter. He liked living in the forest. He appreciated the sun's warmth on his scales and the gentle sway of the branches overhead. Each morning, he'd slither out of his cozy den under the gnarled roots of an ancient oak and greet the day with a flick of his tongue. His tongue, though lacking taste, was surprisingly sensitive to scents carried on the breeze, allowing him to navigate his world in a unique way. Now, despite his physical differences, Blind Fangless yearned to be like the other snakes, to hunt and to survive on his own. However, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, he realized that his dreams of being a fierce predator were just that, dreams. Still, he refused to give up. One day, while basking on a warm rock, he overheard some birds discussing a juicy field mouse that had taken up residence near the riverbank. Filled with determination, Blind Fangless decided to track down the little mouse. Slithering through the undergrowth, he followed the faint scent of the river, hoping it would lead him to the mouse. As he moved, he noticed something strange. The ground seemed to vibrate beneath him, not in a way that a bird or an insect could cause, but in a rhythm that hinted at something powerful and approaching. Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of heavy footsteps. Startled, Blind Fangless looked around frantically, trying to determine the source of the noise. Just then, a huge shape emerged from behind a cluster of trees. It was a bear, its fur matted and its eyes sharp with hunger. The bear lumbered closer, its attention fixed on Blind Fangless. Fear coiled in the small snake's stomach, squeezing tight like a constrictor. He couldn't run. He didn't have the speed or the stamina to escape. He couldn't hide. There was nowhere to conceal his slender form among the sparse foliage. All he could do was wait, hoping against hope that the bear would pass him by. As the bear drew nearer, Blind Fangless braced himself for the end. But instead of ending his life, the bear did something unexpected. It sniffed him curiously. Then, to Blind Fangless's utter astonishment, it spoke. "Why don't you get out of here, little snake? Don't you realize I'm hungry?" asked the bear, its voice rumbling like distant thunder. Blind Fangless, still trembling from fear, managed to reply, I'm sorry, Great Bear. I didn't mean to be in your way. I'll leave right now," the bear snorted. "Leave if you know what's good for you." With that, the bear turned away, resuming its search for food. As soon as the bear disappeared into the bushes, Blind Fangless slumped to the ground, his heart pounding against his ribs. It was the closest call he'd ever had, and he knew he owed his life to his size. The bear hadn't seen him as a worthy meal because he was too small. But how long would that last? How long could he rely on his size to protect him? Something had to change, and quickly. As the seasons changed and the leaves turned from green to gold to brown, Blind Fangless grew more determined than ever to find a way to survive. Winter was coming, and he knew he couldn't spend it hiding from predators. He needed to learn how to defend himself. One day, while exploring a new part of the forest, he stumbled upon a clearing he'd never seen before. In the center of the clearing stood a magnificent oak tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. Beneath the oak was a group of animals huddled together, sharing stories and preparing for the coming winter. There were rabbits, squirrels, mice, and even a family of foxes. They were all gathered there to learn from each other, to share their knowledge and skills so that everyone would be ready for the harsh winter months. Hesitantly, Blind Fangless approached the group, his head held high despite the tremor in his limbs. As he got closer, whispers rippled through the assembly. "Here comes trouble," one voice said. "Stay away, Blind Fangless," another hissed. But before Blind Fangless could respond, A wise old owl perched on a nearby branch hooted loudly. Enough. We are here to learn, and learning means being open to all, not just those we agree with. Welcome, Blind Fangless. What brings you to our circle? Her gaze was steady and kind, and her words echoed with authority. Blind Fangless took a deep breath and explained his situation. He told them about his dream to be a strong and independent snake, and how his lack of teeth and eyes made it difficult for him to do so. The animals listened intently, and when Blind Fangless finished, a small mouse spoke up. I may not be able to help you with your sight or teeth, but I can teach you the ways of the night. I can show you how to forage for food, how to avoid predators, and how to stay safe in the dark. And so it began. Every evening after sunset, Blind Fangless would meet with the animals in the clearing. The owls taught him to navigate by the stars. The rabbits shared their knowledge of plants and herbs. The foxes told tales of surviving in the wilderness. And the wise old owl guided them all, ensuring that Blind Fangless understood the lessons. It was a long and slow process, but with each passing day, Blind Fangless grew more confident. He learned to identify edible plants, to recognize the sounds of approaching danger, and to make his way through the darkest nights. As winter arrived, blanketing the forest in snow and ice, Blind Fangless was ready. He had food stored in secret places. He knew where to find shelter from the cold, and he could sense danger long before it reached him. The other snakes, who had once mocked him, now sought him out, asking for his help in finding food and avoiding predators. They had learned that size and sharp features weren't everything in the battle for survival. Sometimes, it was the little guy with the keen senses and a clever mind that had the best chance of making it. As the snow fell softly around him, Blind Fangless looked up at the sky. He was still small, and he still didn't have teeth or eyes, but he was no longer helpless. He was resourceful, knowledgeable, and most importantly, he was brave. He had learned that strength didn't always come from what you had, but from how you used what you were given. And so, the snake without teeth and eyes became known throughout the forest as Blind Fangless, the wise. His story echoed through the trees, reminding every creature that no matter how different or disadvantaged they might feel, they could overcome adversity with courage, determination, and the help of true friends.